I am Haley Alexander. I head up sales engineering and support for Snowflake Data Clean Rooms. I'm very excited to demo the new Snowflake Data Clean Rooms. It's been an awesome year of building features and functionality, working with a ton of customers to make sure that we are delivering value to Snowflake customers and beyond through this product. I'm actually going to demo a couple different product versions today, product environments. So one is our no-code UI, which you're looking at. It's a point-and-click solution that's meant to be a no-code environment for someone who doesn't necessarily come from a technical background. But we're also going to walk through our developer APIs, and these developer APIs are native to Snowsight and a SQL worksheet. And so we're going to kind of orchestrate via SQL how to build a clean room in a technical environment, and also how to customize some of the templates that you're going to see in the no-code environment. So both of these product environments are included with Snowflake Data Clean Rooms. They can be used together, they can be used independently, and we're going to walk through a couple examples today. Now, what you're seeing is just the sort of homepage for the Clean Room UI. And at this point, I am neither a provider, the collaborator who's creating the clean room, or what we call the consumer. The consumer is the party that's receiving the clean room and able to draw insights from that collaboration. I'm neither party at this point. I am just a clean room collaborator, and I'm going to walk through how to build a clean room. And the minute that I click create a clean room, I become the provider of the clean room, which gives me access to set certain security and privacy policies in the clean room, determine which templates can be used, and so on and so forth. Now, before we jump into building a clean room, I'm actually going to spend some time on our left-hand navigation. And I'm going to do that because when we go to build a clean room, it takes less than 2 minutes start to finish to build a clean room. But some of the configurations, as we think about establishing our ecosystem connectors, our collaborators, and some of the account level settings, I'm going to establish before we create a clean room, so that when we go into create a clean room, it's very seamless and end to end. You'll see we're going to jump in first on the admin section here, and we're going to start in the Snowflake admin section. Now, by way of permissioning, anyone in your organization who is a Snowflake admin has a specific role for clean rooms. They not only install the Snowflake Data Clean Rooms native application to get you started on your journey with clean rooms, but they also do object management for any objects you want to bring into the clean room for analysis, as well as some account level features as well. So I'm going to run through this fairly fast, but we'll touch on a couple key factors as we go along. So let's imagine now that your Snowflake administrator has authenticated from the Data Clean Room UI into Snowsight. And of course, up top, you're going to see right away some of your specific account locator information, which cloud region you're in, which is really key for clean room collaboration. And there's also a number of account features that we have enabled directly at the product level. So number one is, you might have heard a term called listing auto fulfillment. LAF is what we refer it to inside of Snowflake, also known as cross-cloud auto fulfillment. This is a way at the product level for the provider of the clean room, or the party that is creating the clean room, to automatically replicate into the cloud region of the consumer. And this is all programmatically done behind the scenes. It's meant to abstract away any of the technical nuances or heavy lift of having to replicate into a cloud region, same cloud region, which is required for collaboration. So if you enable this for your account, then that is done for one specific account within your organization, and that will be programmatically spun up irrespective of the cloud region that your consumer's in. If you're interested in enabling cross-cloud auto-fulfillment, let's have a chat. Let's talk through how this works behind the scenes, any limitations that might come by enabling that. My team is happy to work closely with you to determine if that's the right strategy for your account. External and iceberg tables, your data doesn't have to sit in Snowflake to be joined into the clean room. We're going to walk through that in real time. But if you do want to either enable iceberg tables or just external tables directly from cloud storage, then that can be enabled here under the account features. Under schedule analysis run, we understand that as a part of your workflow, you may not want to actually log in every single day and click run an analysis from the collaboration. And so if schedule analysis run is enabled for your account, then you can enable analyses to be scheduled at some determined cadence. And so if that's enabled, it allows you to think about this at scale without having to log into clean rooms. And again, we'll go through that kind of in real time. I won't spend too much time on access management, but you could think about any of the databases that are enabled for your specific account in Snowflake. Those databases and objects are available to the Snowflake admin to enable for the clean room. It doesn't mean that all of them need to be added. In fact, if you want to edit the objects and the databases that are actually able to be joined into the clean room, then you can do so. Again, this is walled off access for anyone within your organization that has a Snowflake admin access. If you ever add a database, if any of the objects change the schema, you can resync those, and that state will be available then to add into the clean room. Now let's jump out of the Snowflake admin section. So this is again walled off for anyone in your org who's authenticated into Snowsite. And let's start talking about the UI specifically from an admin standpoint. And we're going to walk through in a minute different user roles within the UI for your team. And depending on those roles, they're able to do certain functions inside of the clean room. So as we think about the product level of clean rooms, the application layer, this is a Snowflake clean room, but that doesn't mean that any of the clean rooms you share with your collaborators can still be customized, and it can come from you. It can come from your company. It can be branded as such. You can update your logo so that any clean room tiles that you saw on that homepage are shared with a collaborator. It looks like it's coming from your company. So this is something that you can add and kind of make your own. The second element is, aside from the collaborators in a clean room, so a provider and a consumer, there are also kind of integrated technologies. And you'll see these, we call them persistent tiles in the clean room. That means some type of integrated tech that two independent parties can leverage inside of the clean room. And two common types of integrated tech are identity and data providers, which we'll go through, and activation endpoints. And we're going to go through this probably ad nauseum today, just in greater detail. But this section specifically allows you to customize which of those integrated parties you actually want to be shown in your clean room collaborations. So let's say that you're a publisher. You don't want to enable any activation endpoints outside of your own endpoints, and you could go through and deactivate. So think of this whole section under profile and features as just a way to customize the collaboration for your specific engagement in your company with a collaborator. Identity and data providers, if you know for sure that you want to use the Axiom Real ID and none of the other identity providers are relevant, then you could go in and disable those as well. Now let's talk about user management. User management is specific to internal roles in your organization. So you may have several different types of users who are engaging in clean rooms, and this is very common. I sat down with a customer recently and we outlined all the different types of roles within their org that are personas that would be involved in clean rooms. And there could be a lot, right? Clean room sits inside of an existing workflow. There are technical elements, there are business elements. And so you may want to assign certain data clean room UI roles to different members in your team. A data clean room admin will have all of the left-hand nav features available to them. So they're able to add that logo we just talked about. They're able to customize the ecosystem partner. And a clean room manager actually does not have this admin tab. So this might be for someone in your organization who is going to build a clean room, who's going to run an analysis, but maybe you don't want them to be able to determine what ecosystem partners. Maybe it's an SI you're working with and they need to be completely walled off from being able to authenticate into Snowflake or being able to customize anything in your clean room. So these are the two roles we have today. We'll likely be adding a third role, which a facilitator and an analyst. This role is just specific to running an analysis and queries. So if you want someone to have really limited access in the clean room, we are considering expanding this role, and we'd love to hear from you in terms of what's important. Now let's move up to our connectors. So when you think about connectors, We understand that you have a massive ecosystem of partners. If you're in the advertising media space, the Lumascape literally has thousands of different types of technology solutions that power your workflows. And we have 4 categories here that we've pulled in. This list, both in terms of the number of providers and the types of connectors, will be expanding. But let's start with data. So data can sit inside Snowflake. A couple tabs ago, you saw how I enabled certain databases and objects from my Snowflake account directly into the clean room. But your data might be sitting in an S3 bucket. Your data might be sitting in blob storage. That data can be enabled directly inside of the clean room here. So it doesn't have to sit inside Snowflake. These are easily connectable by different Parquet files in those buckets, and they are used as external tables where we're able to create a secure view into that table and add it to the clean room as if it was any type of other object in Snowflake. From an activation standpoint, this list is really growing inside Snowflake, and it's being driven by customer demand. And so you're going to see we have a number of activation partners. The use case here would be if you are overlapping your data, you're selecting certain segments of interest, you're enriching your own data set from another party, and then you want to go activate that data downstream, or you even want to suppress an audience. We're going to go through that use case. Any of those audiences that have been overlapped or you want to negative retarget can actually be sent downstream to these platforms. And there are different variations. So some API endpoints might only accept a UID2 as an activation token in that specific use case, or it might be CRM, right? It could be first party data like a hashed email, hashed phone number. So I encourage you to go down through the list. As I mentioned, this list is kind of living and breathing and growing inside Snowflake. If some in your ecosystem you have a partner that you don't see here that's important, let us know. This list has been growing based on customer demand. We're also working with reverse ETL partners to kind of do a fan out, a one-to-many approach. And so in the next calendar year, 25, you're going to start to see some reverse ETL partners come into play as well. On the identity and data provider front, our approach is to be agnostic. We want to meet our customers where they are, where they have established relationships. And so you're going to see lots of different connectors here that you could leverage for collaboration, and establishing a strong match rate is obviously very key to data clean rooms and enabling stronger insights downstream. So you can certainly take a first-party data approach where you're joining on some type of first-party ID, like an email, like a phone number. It doesn't even have to be hashed, but we do accept hashing inside the clean room as long as both parties are using the same hashing algo. But if you want to increase that match rate, a canonical use case would be one of the collaborators has my email and one of them has my phone number. Of course, a match is not going to be established, and these third-party identity providers come in and say, no, in fact, that is the same user behind the scenes, and that's the sweet sauce and the technology they bring. I'll make a couple quick notes here and frequently asked questions. Your commercial relationship with these providers sits directly with them. We're simply enabling these in the clean room. 90% of these are Snowflake native applications, and they're just simply being enabled in a seamless fashion inside the clean room. From an identity and data provider standpoint, we do both the resolution and the transcoding. So you can actually bring your data into the clean room that already has an Axiom real ID. And if that's the case, then you're simply going to move to transcoding, because most of these are domain specific and the IDs need to be in a common space. So both you and your collaborator do need to use this identity provider so that you can transcode into a common space. You can also bring in a table that doesn't have the real ID. If it doesn't have the real ID, then you can use the resolution tile here to say, replace my first party ID that's accepted by this provider and insert the real ID. So you can actually do that resolution directly in the clean room in addition to transcoding. In terms of other clean rooms, walled garden clean rooms, so think media clean rooms where your media is running on that specific walled garden clean room like AMC, ADH. Today our integration is basically calling their APIs where they have aggregated insights that we can then bring into our clean room. So think about walled garden clean rooms today, data in. On our roadmap will be data out. So the ability to be able to push audiences into clean rooms as well. So that is on our radar. If it's important, would love to work with you. The other party we're adding here is Meta Advanced Analytics early next year in 2025. So let's move on to collaborators. So collaborators is external. These are the external partners that you want to add into your clean room. And of course, it's easy to add someone that's already a Snowflake customer with their account locator cloud region. If you have listing auto fulfillment enabled, then this will automatically spin up your clean room instance and your collaborators cloud region. But we also allow clean room providers to add consumers that are not Snowflake customers through a Snowflake managed account. This is an account that sits inside Snowflake. Basically gives your consumer that's not on Snowflake access to the UI. They're able to add their data from an external data source. They're able to draw insights, and they don't have to go through the full Snowflake MSA or agreement to do that. So you can think about collaborations as both inside of Snowflake and outside of Snowflake as well. Okay, so let's build a clean room together. And as we do this, you're going to see a lot of these ecosystem partners have already been enabled. So think about as you go into the clean room, a lot of that pre-work and pre-configuration has already been done. Now, I mentioned at the onset, at this point, I am neither a provider or consumer. This little account locator at the bottom is just my demo account, but you'll see that rings true because here are all the clean rooms that I have created, but there are also tabs for clean rooms that I have joined, which means I'm the consumer or have been invited to. And so that's the beauty of one UI for both sides of the coin. Sometimes I create clean rooms and sometimes I join them. I'll just make a quick note. Any of these clean room tiles, so these are specific clean rooms that have been created. Anytime that they say powered by Dev Edition, that means that this is a custom template. So we're going to go through some off-the-shelf templates in the UI, but then I'm going to pivot over to our developer APIs and walk through how you can customize some of these templates. So when you're in this screen and you see powered by Dev Edition, that means that it is actually a clean room that has been built via APIs and either pushed into the UI, which is a really cool feature that we enabled this year, or it's just showing you that there is an API to API clean room and no one's actually active in the UI. They're operating in a technical environment, but it allows you to see all those clean rooms directly here in one place. Okay, so let's get started. Let's build a clean room. We're going to do this kind of start to finish in the UI, and I'm going to walk through one clean room with many templates. And as we think about how to scale clean rooms, I often get asked the question, do I have to build one clean room for one partner, one clean room for one template? And the answer is no. You can build clean rooms however you want to build them and however it's operationally efficient for your company. So for example, you might build one measurement clean room and you might want to share it with 50 consumers. And in that measurement clean room, you could have different types of measurement templates. So that's one example. You could also have one clean room with one template and create different row access policies directly inside of Snowsight so that depending on who you share it with, you don't have to load a table that's specific to your engagement with them. It's kind of a one-time join of a data set. Let's say it's exposure data. If you're a publisher, you create a row access policy so that when it's shared with a specific account locator, the rows that are associated to their account are only showed in the clean room. So that's just an example of how we think about clean rooms at scale. At the end of the day, it's totally up to you. We want to empower you and give you options that kind of meet your company and your team where you are. Okay, so think about a 4-step process to creating a clean room. In step 1, we're going to establish what data do we want to power this specific use case. I'm going to walk through a couple different use cases today, and I'm going to pick a data set that is just a 360 of my specific customer base. So it has different attributes about my customers. It has some PII data, which I'll create as a join column. But step one here is just determining what data do I need to power the use case, and where is my data sitting? Is it in an S3 bucket that I've already established? Is it directly inside of Snowflake? And so here is where you're going to determine the actual data that you want to use for the clean room, and you're also going to just determine where that data is sitting. Now, I'm going to pick just, as I mentioned, a sample table here from my Snowflake database. And what you're going to see is as soon as I select that table, I get just a very quick snapshot of the column headers in that table. Now, a key security paradigm of the clean room, obviously no record level data, source data is ever shown in the clean room. That is true for you and your collaborator, and that is also true for internal users within your company. No data is ever brought into the clean room. In fact, these asterisks are just cosmetic to show you that a record exists inside of that table. Now, on the upper right-hand side, you're going to see something called the summary card. The summary card updates dynamically based on the configurations you've set so that you don't have to backpedal through the steps. Once certain objects are joined into the clean room, we're also going to show you how we bring metadata in to give you a snapshot of the tables or views that were added to the clean room, how many records are available so that you don't have to kind of back into Snowside or back into cloud storage to see if you grab the correct table. Now, we do show some metadata in the UI. So we show column headers because we're going to set a secure column policy. We show the actual object name and the database name, and then of course aggregate insights. So that's really the extent of the data that will ever be shown. It's metadata, UI metadata that will be shown inside of the clean room. Okay, so let's move on to the next step here. So we have established what data am I going to use for this use case. I'm going to go through a number of use cases. So I selected a pretty universal consumer file. And now we're going to establish our join policy. And this is where establishing the join column, the match rate comes into play. I'm going to select a hashed email. I'm going to set a join on that hashed email. But just know you could select multiple IDs here. You could do a hashed email, you could do a phone number. And in our overlap template, which is one of the templates I am going to demo, you can actually create a waterfall logic and say, exhaust all my matches on hashed email, then see if I have any matches on phone number. Or exhaust all my matches where there is both a hashed email and a hashed phone number. So that waterfall logic exists. But let's say that you want to supercharge that. You want to supercharge it and you want to enable one of the identity partners that we've already discussed. That is where you would do it here. So I won't go through the full flow, but again, if you want to do the matching and resolution, you can actually go through the flow where one of your first party IDs, like a hashed email, is replaced by a real ID. And then the real ID could be transcoded into your collaborator's space so that you can create a match on a common ID. All right, so I'm going to stick with hashed email just for simplicity's sake, and we're going to press forward to the next step. And in this step, this is where we're going to define which templates that we want to enable for the collaboration. And again, you can select many templates. In fact, I'm going to select many templates for this clean room. If I would have selected multiple tables, then that is where I would associate which table belongs to which template. Now I'm going to hover in the advertising and marketing type of queries and templates, but we're also going to dip into a horizontal template. That's a restricted SQL template that can be used universally, irrespective of the use case and irrespective of the vertical. You'll see here our templates kind of follow marketing lifecycle use cases. So for example, if I'm creating a new audience, right? If I'm creating the audience and then I want to activate it, we're going to go into our activation hub, which is all a part of the same template so that you don't have to create multiple templates. And then I want to create a new type of audience with lookalike modeling. So we're going to create a lookalike model together, and then we're going to customize it with Developer Edition. And then I want to measure, right? Measure and optimize, which is the last phase of the marketing lifecycle. So we have reach and frequency, last touch attribution, and from a planning standpoint, up at the top, inventory forecasting. Now, all of these templates have an associated questionnaire, and these are configurations that are needed specific to that template. So for example, Let's say that I want to bring in a certain table just for audience overlap and segmentation. So I would determine which table I want to bring in. This is where column policies come in. Which of my columns do I want my collaborator to be able to segment by, to be able to filter by? And we'll go through that in the analysis section, but this is totally within your control. Do I want to allow categorical value previews while my collaborator is filtering for the analysis? So for example, if I have, group by age, within age, I have different values and different groupings, then that would apply here. Now, under activation sections, you may actually want to allow a party to join on one ID. So let's say a hashed email, but send another ID in the data set. So this might be a proprietary ID of yours. You can actually join on one and activate on another ID. And so that is enabled here. You can actually allow non-overlapped activation. And so this will send data sets back to you that that actually haven't been overlapped in your data set. And so you can determine which are not known users. So that's something that you can enable here. Enabled partners are any of those ecosystem partners that you've enabled for this clean room. This is just giving you transparency into that. Now, under privacy settings, these privacy settings are specific to every single template. And so they can be set at the template level. We have threshold value, which is whatever threshold you set here. If the group by results returned do not meet that specific threshold, then no results are returned. So this is a way to just prevent any type of re-identification. You can also supercharge it with differential privacy. So differential privacy is basically injecting noise into the results based on the privacy budget that you've set. And with the privacy budget, there's a daily privacy budget and a budget per query. The budget per query is how much, every time a query is run, how much of that privacy budget is drawn down on, which just restricts how many queries can be run in a 24-hour period. And it also injects noise into the data set so that each time a query is run, depending on the filtering that's being applied, there's no way to kind of re-engineer or reverse identify the different audiences within your data. If you're interested in enabling differential privacy, we have a team that specializes in the algorithm that's used, the different data points that it's looking at to determine DP. So let's have a conversation if that's important to you. Okay, so you can see I have added this template into the clean room. I'm also going to add in a last touch attribution, which is just determining what is the table, which column do I use for timestamp and unique ID, and then do I want any group by and filters to be used for that specific data set. So if you are interested in enabling multiple templates, you can do so here. I want to quickly dip into what we call the SQL query under horizontal vertical. This is meant to basically enable SQL access, just a free-flowing SQL query for a collaboration. So think about, we allow single-party clean rooms. So let's say that you're a CPG, you're working with a retail media provider or a retailer, and you simply want to ask questions of their data. The restricted SQL template basically says you can ask any question of the data without having to submit the question, have it go under review. And the reason for that is because we're setting certain aggregation, projection, and fully permitted columns. And if the query that your collaborator writes against that data set does not adhere to those policies, the query will not return any results. In fact, they get an error message. Aggregation is basically which of the columns do I allow for an aggregation function. So you can set those certain columns as such. Projection policy is which columns do I want to allow a select star by. So if the projection policy exists for that specific column and I pick another column when I write my query, which I'll do momentarily, then that query will fail if there's not a projection policy set against it. Or you can just say these columns are fully permitted in the data set. And so you can think about this template specifically enables you to just ask various questions without having to go through a full SQL template on the back end. For any of the policies or column policies that have been set, then you could set the thresholds and against that specific column. So if the results on that aggregation policy don't meet the threshold that you've set, then of course that data or that result set will not return any results. I won't go through every single template. I encourage you to play around, but just know you can have one clean room with multiple templates, and that's a pretty common pattern from our customers. Now, in the fourth step here, we're going to determine a couple things. One is, who do we want to share this clean room with? I'm just going to share it with one collaborator. If you've added on the left-hand nav multiple external collaborators, that's where you would add that to the list here. And you can also determine something called provider run, which is, let's say I'm the publisher, I'm working with an advertiser, or I'm a CPG brand and I'm working with a retailer. You can determine if you create the clean room, who gets to run the analysis. It may be you and your consumer. It may be just you. Let's say you're working with a media provider for an A/B lift test, and you don't want them to actually see the results and alter the campaign setting in any way, but you want them to join the clean room and add their data to the clean room. You can determine that here. And so it's within the full control of the provider to create that. Now, as we wrap up here, the provider, basically we're going to give a notification to the provider that says, here are all the templates you've created. You've created a SQL query template, you've created an audience overlap and segmentation template, and you've also enabled provider run. And so when I go in as the consumer now, and I see that clean room being created, it's going to flag me that the person that created this clean room is also going to run the analysis. So it's going to kind of create that handshake. If I, as the consumer, do not want them to run the analysis, then I can just reject that clean room. So it's a clear pattern on kind of the handshake that is required for both parties to create the clean room. Now, I've wrapped up creating a clean room, establishing multiple templates, determining which privacy settings are important. I've shared it with a certain collaborator. And now I'm going to pivot over to the consumer side of clean rooms, right? So what is the experience after this clean room has been provided? And so I'm going to scroll up here. I'm in a different demo account. And so now I'm taking the role of the provider. And what you're going to see is anytime that there is a clean room that has been shared with you that has a pending invitation, you're going to see a little yellow notification here. And it's going to say, hey, there is a clean room that has been shared with you. And of course, outside of the clean room, there are also ways via email that users get notification. Let's say that if someone has added them as a collaborator in the clean room, or a new audience has been shared, which we'll do momentarily, we also do notifications via email as well. Okay, so we're going to walk through the consumer view. And so what I'm going to do is just join this clean room, right? And 90% of the same steps that we just went through apply for the consumer side, but it's a little bit shorter, right? It's a shorter experience because, the provider determines which templates are enabled for a clean room, just as an example. So I don't need to determine which template that I want to be available for the clean room. I also don't have to determine which external collaborator to add to the clean room because that's already been done by the provider. And so you're going to see 3 easy steps on the consumer side. I, just like the provider, have an opportunity to add data into the clean room. And so, I'm going to pick a similar, let's say, customer 360 table on my side. I'm going to save that into the clean room. I could also bring in, same on the consumer side, a Parquet file, let's say from an S3 bucket. I'm going to say, I also want to use a hashed email on my side to join the data. And this is a conversation between you and your collaborator. And you'll start to see over here on the right-hand side, the summary card is now starting to update with, the different clean room configurations that have been added. Now, the last step is just the configure analysis and query. I just grabbed another clean room while the other one is getting mounted, but you could see for the specific clean room, it's very transparent in terms of which template has been enabled for the clean room. And I can go through and say, okay, this is the table that I want to associate in case there have been multiple templates added. These are the columns on my side that are approved from an attribution standpoint. And then you can also load template definitions. And this is basically going to show all the details of that specific template configuration. Now that I have joined the clean room, and again, while the other clean room is getting mounted, I just sort of picked another clean room that I had loaded up. Now I can actually start to draw insights and go into some of the analysis and queries for that specific clean room. And so what you're going to see now is that 32 number has moved over to 31 because I have now joined this specific clean room. So these created, joined, and invited tabs are dynamic based on where I am in the clean room process and which collaborator I am. Now, inside any of the clean room tiles that I have joined, you're going to see that there is a run button. And in that run button, all of the templates that have been enabled for that specific collaboration are going to appear. And so I can click inside of that template, and then I can run the template, set the configurations, and save it on my side. Now, I'm going to jump into the analysis and queries section, but I have a couple templates that are already preloaded for you, just so that we don't have to wait for them to load. One is the audience overlap template. So this is the very first template that I added to the clean room. What you'll see is there's clean room details specific to the summary card that have been added to the collaboration, and including any of the metadata stats for my specific objects added. I can go in and select which of my tables do I want to power this specific template. So let's say I have multiple tables for that template and I want to see overlap by different tables. I can do that. Under join columns, this is where that waterfall logic comes into play. So let's say that I selected a hashed email and I want to see what the join is first on an email before I move on to a different type of ID. This is where that waterfall logic could be set. You can add a different join column. You can set an and statement, hashed email, and last name between the or statements as well, or the or arguments. Under user segmentation for the audience overlap, this is where any of those permitted columns to do filtering and segmentation by come into play, as well as additional filters inside of those user segments. So this template is just establishing what is my match rate for the audience overlap with my consumer, and what is the overlap metric determined by the specific ID that I selected. So we have both overlap. So in this data set, we're saying we overlapped 55% of our data either through a hashed email or a hashed phone number distinctly. So I first joined on a hashed email. I have an overlap of 34%, and I have a 22% incremental overlap if I also join on a hashed email. And of course, you can do non-overlapped if I would have selected that for the specific template. I can save this analysis. This is where schedule run comes in. I can save the analysis. I can have it run on a specific cadence that I want to enable, if this is enabled for my account. And not only that, I can actually activate this overlap data set. And you're going to see all of those activation partners at the beginning of the left-hand nav that I enabled are now available inside of this specific template. So I can send this down to LiveRamp Connect and fan out to any of the partners that I've connected to and have a crosswalk with. I can send it down to Google Ads, Meta Ads. I can also send it back to myself, my Snowflake account. So as a Snowflake consumer, I can send it back to my account. I can also send it back to my provider. I can say, of our overlap data, so 2 known audiences, I want to send this portion based on either filtering and segments back to you as the provider. And I want you to be able to either do more data analysis on your side. I want you to be able to send that directly through a pipeline established with your platform. So you have flexibility for external parties, and you also have flexibility to just send it between different Snowflake accounts for the clean room. So this is a very kind of off-the-shelf audience overlap to establish match rate to either send or suppress audiences. But I wanted to go through the SQL template as well. So the SQL template is basically asking certain questions of a data set where either you have joined data or it's a single party clean room and you want to ask questions of your collaborators' data. And you'll see any of the columns that either have a projection policy or an aggregation policy. It's all very transparent here on the right-hand nav under tables. And when I write this SQL template, if I do a select by a column that does not have a projection policy associated to it, that is how I control how someone can actually access the data and the results that they get back. So I have an aggregation policy, for example, under status. So I'm able to create a group by that status. And that could be, of course, any columns. So this is meant to be done at scale. We don't want you to have to write a question or write a query, send it to the collaborator, get approval, send it back. This is all enforced by certain aggregation and projection policies. And of course, thresholds that are set for those policies. So for example, you get back just a very simple table based on the query output. And again, if any of the results don't match the threshold, basically what you're going to see at the bottom is a 0 in terms of the results. So this is how we think about drawing insights for a specific data set without having to establish any type of template on the back end. One of the other off-the-shelf templates is a lookalike model. So this is very common in the media space. If you, let's say you're a CPG brand and you don't have as much first-party data, but you want to intersect some attributes and characteristics from your data for high-value consumers or consumers on your side that you want to mimic. And you want to intersect that with certain features on another data. Let's say it's a retail media network's data or retailer's data. And you want to say, these are the features on your end that are important for me to train against. So you're going to overlap the data. You're going to create a model where you're basically training on those specific attributes. And the end goal is that you want to find audiences that look very similar to your audiences, but they're actually net new audiences. And you want to go downstream and activate to see how that net new audience performs out in the wild. So a lookalike off-the-shelf template is available here in the UI. This is an XGBoost model. When we go over to APIs, you can certainly supercharge this both in terms of the model, a PyTorch, Keras, any type of model that you want to bring into the clean room, but you can also change anything about the ROC curve. So the true positive rate, the false positive rate, how many iterations you want to allow during your training. This can all be set directly in the clean room. And then, of course, you can activate those audiences as well back into your Snowflake account. So this is an example of the off-the-shelf lookalike model. And shortly, we're going to walk through how to customize that with APIs. I'll end with the last touch attribution. Attribution is a very heavily adopted use case for clean rooms, where one party is bringing some type of first-party data, some type of data on their side from a conversion standpoint. Maybe a publisher or a network is bringing some type of exposure data. And this specific template, we are basically saying that one party is bringing a table with conversions and clicks, and the other is bringing, let's say, impression data. And so I'm going to walk through an example of how you can customize this with APIs, because that might not be the data that you have available. That might not be the pattern that you follow. But at the end of the day, what we're basically trying to show is that you can get results from that last touch attribution model, either through click-through rates, view-through rates. You could set the conversion windows. You can set the group buys. So the distribution could be by channel. It could be by platform. This is an off-the-shelf template that can be set up in a matter of minutes. But as we pivot over to APIs, I'm going to customize a template for you that removes clicks as an example, right? Because you might be a streaming platform. There's no clicks. It's all about exposures and then conversions with your advertiser on the back end. But just know this is an off-the-shelf template that is available today for your use. So we've gone through an overlap template. We've gone through restricted SQL for insights and analytics. We've gone through a lookalike model to create net new audiences based on attributes of interest. And we've gone through measurement, last touch attribution. So I'm going to stop there as it relates to the UI, because now I want to supercharge some of this and APIs. And as you think about clean rooms and the two product environments, you can think about, you can build a clean room start to finish in the UI where both parties are on the UI. You can also build a clean room start to finish in the APIs. So if you have two technical parties that want to operate in APIs because they want to build their own templates, share them back and forth, customize them, do template chaining, maybe multi-provider API, that can all be supercharged in APIs. But also you can build something in the APIs and then with a UI customization form, actually push that custom template back into the UI. So if you're consumer, your collaborator is not technical, they want to do a very fast analysis on their side, you can do some of the lifting on your side to build a custom template based on your collaboration needs, but that doesn't mean that they also have to work in APIs. So the two product environments work together in that way as well. So I'm going to walk through two very fast templates here. And what you're going to see, I'm just in a SQL worksheet inside of Snowsight, is a lot of the APIs that I'm running here are actually just powering the UI. So for example, you might remember when we created a clean room in the UIs, we listed out the name, right? And here you'll see the API for set clean room name for the clean room. We're going to skip some of this admin, but we're going to make sure that we have the latest. We're going to initialize the clean room. We're going to make sure that the latest release directive is set, the latest patch and version for the native application and for the web app, that is all set here. And then we're going to move into the very similar steps that we encountered in the UI around creating a clean room. So for example, we are going to determine what data sets that we want to bring into the clean room. And so I have my data set here that I want to bring into the clean room. We call these linking data sets, and you'll see on the back end, this mimics step one, right? I'm determining which object I'm bringing into the clean room, and we're going to see a very similar flow, but with APIs here on the back end. I'm going to set a join policy. This is step two in the clean room, right? Which policy do I want to enable for joining? If I click next here. So this sequence and this pattern is actually very similar, very synergetic in terms of what APIs are being called to create a clean room and what's happening behind the scenes in the web app. Now, where it starts to get interesting is today we utilize SQL Jinja templates, right? And I can actually customize my template. And so for this specific template, I wanted to just remove the clicks from the template because I didn't want clicks to be forced, because that doesn't make sense for my business and it doesn't make sense for my partners. And so what I did was I took the last touch attribution template and I modified it so that clicks were no longer required. And I want to drive a very simple conversion rate by platform. So maybe it's the campaign is set up for mobile specifically. It might be set up for display. It could be set up by creative type, by certain types of campaigns. And so I built this Jinja template here based on the data that I have available on my side and based on the results that I want to see. So this is all customizable. Now, where it starts to get interesting is I can not only customize the Jinja template based on my use case, I can also customize the UI form. And so in these next few steps, we're going to add the collaborator that we want to send it to, similar to the UI in that last step with the dropdown. But now I'm going to go down and actually customize. What do I want this template to say or state within the UI? And so what you'll see is I can actually freeform write out, what is this template? What's the display name? How do I want to describe it? And basically this populates inside of the platform here. So anything I write will then populate inside of the UI. And so this is meant to just basically allow you to customize this template specific to your engagement. You can also customize any of the group buys. Do you want it to be a drop down? Do you want it to be optional? Do you want it to be required? And then, of course, what type of output type do you want? I set up a very simple table as my output, which we'll walk through momentarily. But anything that I build in terms of not only the actual template, which is I can determine if I want this to be transparent to the consumer, but also any of the specific UI customizations that I've built then carry over into the UI for my consumer. I did a very simple conversion rate based on type of platform and interactions for this data set in a tabular format. But what you'll see is in our documentation under UI form customizations, you can actually specify all of the different arguments, the values that you want to be included, the types of output configurations and output types. I selected a table. You could do a pie chart, line, bar chart, etc. So again, all of this is very transparent in our documentation, and the sky's the limit. You can really build anything you want in terms of a specific customized template. In our documentation, we also outline examples, right? So let's say that you have a very simple machine learning template that you want to add into the clean room. You can customize that with your specific modeling. Let's say that you want to do template chaining, multi-provider API. Let's say that you want to enable your consumers to actually request templates into the clean room. You can do that as well. I'll also just highlight in the UI for custom templates that have been registered. Not only do we show, if you enable it, the actual SQL behind the scenes, but if you modify this template as the provider, then the consumer is going to get a little notification at the top where they have to approve that template. So this prohibits one party from making changes and it not being transparent to the other party. We've gone through a lot. I didn't go through our modeling example, but let's say that you wanted to customize, maybe it's not an XGBoost model. Maybe you want to load a specific Python library or specific model into the clean room. You want to change and customize the boosting rounds, the ROC curve. All of this can be customized, the error rate, etc. So you can basically train the data, do the scoring functions directly inside of the clean room. And then if you wanted to also attach a custom UI form on the back of that, you could do it as well so that the other party can seamlessly use the clean room inside of the UI. I would encourage you not only to play around in clean rooms, there's a lot you can do here. Hopefully that's evident here in this demo, but also check out our documentation. We have clean room examples that are specific to the web app as an example. We have our identity partners, activation partners, the SQL template, best practices here. But we also have in our developer APIs guides. If you're the provider, what can I do as the provider? What can I do as the consumer? So with that, I am going to conclude the demo for Snowflake Data Clean Rooms. We've only just scratched the surface in this demo on what's possible. So I encourage you to check out some of the examples in our APIs. We have literally line by line APIs and commands that can be run. All of the scripts that you see here that I have built, this is literally an aggregation of all of the line by line commands that we make available. So this is meant to be technical. It's meant to be customizable, but not at the expense of making it a heavy lift. So everything is still Snowflake centric. If you're familiar with Snowsite, everything is very still off the shelf, if you will, but it's meant to be specific to the environment that you require or that you prefer, and also to enable customization.